Hello and welcome back to Cult Leader. I'm your Cult Leader, Spencer Henry, and this is a Little Leader where I read the stories that you send to me. Hey, if you have a story that you want to share with the cult, then send it on over to spencer@cultleader.com. But that's not it. There's more rules now. You have to put Little Leader somewhere in the title or the subject of the email. You have to apologize for how long it is, or new twist, the new thing that the kids are doing is not apologizing for how long it is, but you have to also write that. What else? You also have to give the title something like a Lifetime movie type title. There's a lot of rules happening. And, you know, at this point, it's bigger than me. I don't control anything anymore. I feel like I have fully lost control of this cult. But, you know, we're trying our best. It's just, we need to, I guess, reinstate some mind control tactics or something. What's going on? How was everyone's week? Hopefully nice. Hopefully good. I have been watching so much good stuff. I wanted to watch that impeachment, the American Crime Story or whatever. It's the Monica Lewinsky scandal that this season is covering. And I went to watch the first episode on Hulu, and then it was like, oh, you have to watch this with Hulu Live. And I'm like, come on, I pay for Hulu. I mean, I pay for, literally at this point, I pay for every subscription service I feel like you could possibly have. But I haven't had cable. I haven't had like live TV in quite some time because I have like Apple TV, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, everything you can think of. And I'm like, am I really about to do this? And I was like, you know what? We all know at this point, I've been watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Ever since I found out about this whole Tom and Erica drama, I started watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And you know, I want to watch it live. Between that need and want, and then also wanting to watch this impeachment show, I'm like, I'll bite the bullet. I'm going to buy Hulu Plus. And so I buy Hulu Plus only to find out that there's like 5 minutes of ads on their commercial breaks, which I'm like, what? Like, it's $65 a month. Give me a break. I had regular Hulu before. I never had ads, or maybe I was paying for an ad-free version. So now I got to pay for the ad-free on top of that, which is fine. It's spiraling out of control. I'm just losing control left and right, but it's okay. We're accepting the things that we cannot change. Anyways, this is a very long-winded way of telling you I watched something. I watched a Lifetime movie because guess what? Hulu Live comes with the Lifetime Movie Network channel, and we know I'm a fan. I watched this movie the other night. It's called The Twisted Twin, and it was so good. It was bad in all the right ways. We had an evil twin. We had a jewel thief. I mean, truly, what more can you ask for? And it was very quintessential. Like, one twin was like the good, nice girl. She wears like all the light colored clothing and everything. And then this evil twin shows up and she's wearing a leather jacket. And she's like, I was texting my friend Chris because we were watching it together at the same time. And I was like, the bad twin is dressed like Scream, which I feel like is a common theme in Lifetime movies. Anytime an evil twin shows up, they're always dressed like Scream, or what's his name? Ghostface. They're wearing like black jeans, black top, black everything. The black boots. Really edgy. So highly recommend. And it is cool because you can record things. This is not an ad, but you can record things. Or like if something's live, like if a Lifetime movie is already playing, or like a show you want to watch or whatever is already playing, you can go click on it and go start from the beginning. But gotta figure out these ads. What else? I'm still watching American Horror Story. Obviously, it's so good. This season, I'm telling you, I've had people respond like when I post on stories that I'm watching it or whatever. They're like, is it worth it? I haven't watched since blah, 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 since blah, blah, blah. Yes, this season is worth it. It is a good season. This is like a solid season of American Horror Story. It's probably in my top 5 now. There's still time. It could still take a turn, but I'm really into it. What else happened this week? On Cult Leader, we talked about, we did the Isolated episode, which I loved. It's just so eerie to me. Just the thought of somebody being in their house or apartment for just years and nobody knowing that they're dead. So crazy. On Obituary, we talked about a few really interesting factoids. See, I love a factoid. a fact about me is I love a factoid. I do. I talked this week about this grave that's in just the middle of the road at an intersection in Indiana. And Madison talked about grave rentals, which is something I had no idea about. And we finally got to talk about the obituary that was generated by a bot. That was just, we were losing it. I can't tell you how many times that we have been sent that. So I was so excited for that episode to go out because we pre-record obituary. We're a week ahead always, which means that when something like current is circulating, like that robot obituary was, like, even if we talk about it the day that it comes out or whatever, it still feels like a week late. But we finally got to do that. Good episode. Funny. I'm really excited for Monday's episode of Cult Leader because it's kind of like a combination of everything that I love. You'll see. You'll see. I don't want to spoil it, but get ready. So let's get into some emails. So the first email says, the shortest little leader ever, a LuLaRoe experience, which, by the way, if you guys have not watched LuLaRich on Amazon Prime yet, what are you even doing? It is so good. I've already talked about it. I've already told you guys, but you need to watch it. Like, I swear to God, even if you don't think you're interested, start one episode and you will be sucked in and you will finish all 4 of them in one sitting. That's what I did. And I actually had multiple people respond like, my boyfriend or my husband is not into this stuff at all, but we started watching it and he was fully watching it. It's because it's so crazy and it's just shot really well. And if you have like a bad attention span like I do, clearly, I think we all know at this point, it's no secret, it's an easy watch. It's very fast paced, very fast moving. Anyways, okay, back to this email. Shortest little leader ever, a LuLaRoe experience. I know it's tradition, but I won't apologize for how long my story is because this is so short it barely qualifies as a story. Everyone is talking about LuLaRoe and this is my only experience with them. I haven't seen the doc, but I plan to. You need to. Pre-COVID, my friends and I volunteered at a battered women's shelter. The last time we did this, we were organizing their donation storage. If a woman and her family checked into this place, they got a warm and a cold outfit for themselves and each of their kids, toiletries, and each kid got a toy. You know what? I guess shout out to the Downtown Women's Center in downtown LA. I really like them. I've volunteered there a few times pre-COVID. I would like to start volunteering again. I haven't volunteered at all since COVID, but they have a really well-run system over there. Really like them. In the women's clothing room, there were several giant trash bags of leggings and baggy yoga t-shirts, and I can only describe this stuff as athleisure wear. Only a wine-drunk stay-at-home mom that is always a decade behind in style and really likes clowns. It really likes clowns would wear. It was not cute. Clashy loud patterns in mismatched color stories. It was soft and seemed comfy though, so I'll give it that. At first I was like, oh, did some nice lady You're so shady. Oh, did some nice lady use all of the leftover fabrics from a store or her home to make all of the clothes for the shelter? Because that's so sweet. And the woman that worked at the shelter laughed and said, oh no, have you heard of LuLaRoe? A woman got into that MLM. She made a showroom store in her house and everything, but she couldn't sell any of it. Shocker. So the woman donated all of the clothes to us. I giggled and folded about 500 pairs of hideous leggings. Moral of the story, at least LuLaRoe ended up helping someone. Also, maybe that was a long story. Okay, I'm sorry. Always a cult babe, Vina. Vina, thank you. You know, it was a time, it was a moment. There is a group for everyone. I mean, listen, I go walk through a mall. I went to a mall the other day for the first time in God knows how long. And like I was walking through Forever 21 and I think I've officially hit like a stage in my life where I feel like I'm old and I don't understand what's happening anymore. I don't get it. I mean, I'm here for it. Like, wear whatever the fuck you want. Like, rock it. I love it. I mean, style-wise, I've always kind of stuck to just very classic style, but I don't know. Classic style, or I also dress like a skater dad half the time. I'm wearing like Vans and whatever, but I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on a lot of the time. But, you know, there's something for everyone. We are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
We have a commercial guest. Hey, Madison. Hi.
We're all adults here, and some adults choose to use nicotine to relax, focus, or unwind after a long day. Lucy Nicotine is a company that was created to help nicotine users find a cleaner option and feel better about the ways they consume nicotine, which I'm like, hey, whatever's going to help you switch from smoking, I'm for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on, let's get real here. People smoke.
Well, Lucy Nicotine is a company that was created to help nicotine users find a cleaner option and feel better about the ways they consume nicotine. Their latest product is Slim Nicotine Pouches, which contains pure synthetic nicotine and provides the same satisfaction that nicotine users expect without any tobacco at all. Anytime you can switch to a cleaner alternative than cigarettes,
Absolutely.
I'm here for it. Spread the word. Lucy Slim Pouches use the newest technology for synthesizing pure nicotine in the lab, none of the tobacco, all of the nicotine.
Hey, sure. I think I've heard about this. Lucy Slim Pouches include both coconut oil and gum base to provide a soft, fluffy texture that enhances the flavor and doesn't dry out your mouth.
Hey, Madison, I think you're right. They come in 3 strengths, 4, 8, and 12 milligrams.
Oh, and did you know there are 3 exclusive and delicious flavors?
Tell me more.
Spearmint, mango, and cool cider.
Wow. If you're looking to switch from cigarettes to a cleaner alternative, let me tell you that cool cider is going to make you feel real good this fall. It's 2021. Don't compromise when you're choosing your nicotine products. Go with the newest tobacco-free options from Lucy. Cult Leader listeners, go to lucy.co and use promo code CultLeader to get 20% off your order of Lucy Slim Pouches or any other Lucy products. That's lucy.co and use promo code CultLeader at checkout. Also, I have to give this disclaimer, warning, this product contains non-tobacco nicotine, but nicotine is an addictive chemical. Lucy.co and use the promo code CultLeader. And we're back. The subject line on this next one says, Little Leader, hometown suicide, murder, and other hauntings in the state, Connecticut. Hi, Spencer. I hope you remember me. I sent you a portrait and some crystals almost 2 years ago now. Yes, I remember you. I still have the crystals. They're in like a thing next to my bed, and the portrait is by my front door. Guess what? You walk into my place and you're seeing me. You're seeing my face. I think there's also a picture of it. Olivia put together a book for me for my 30th birthday and had like all of my friends and family members write something nice and then like put pictures of us. And it was so cute because in the book, she took a lot of the art or pictures or portraits, whatever you guys have drawn of me or created of me. And she like made a little spread in the book of all of the art, which is so nice. And so I have it all. I'm so proud of how far you've come with the podcast and second podcast and that it can now be your full-time job. Me too. Who would have thunk? Also, if you listen to this, which hopefully you will because you sent in a story, tag it on your story. And because I want to, if you still have your shop, your Etsy shop, would love to share it with the Cult Babes. It was really cool. I would preface these 2 stories with suicide and infanticide warnings. If necessary, they're pretty heavy. I'm a little nervous for some reason to send this in, but here it goes. I have some hometown murdery things to share. I live in a small town of about 9,000 people. We are connected to a bigger town of 46,000 with a bridge over the Connecticut River, and a lot of people spend time or work across the bridge because our town is so small. But this first story is about someone from the smaller town that I personally went to high school with and occurred in the larger town across the bridge at the closest hospital. This guy, Stephen Ellum, was always a troubled kid. When this story spread, no one from town could really say they were surprised, but more saddened because he clearly never got the help that he needed. I've included a couple of articles that go more in depth, but I'll summarize what happened. Wednesday, this guy quits his job. Thursday morning, he Facebook Live streams himself crashing his car naked through the entrance of the emergency department at the local hospital and then douses himself in gasoline and sets himself on fire. Holy shit. All while ranting about the Illuminati and that we all need to repent to be saved. He later died of his injuries, but thankfully he did not seriously injure anyone else in the hospital, which terrifyingly seemed to be his original intention. I watched the Facebook video before it was taken down and it was deeply, deeply disturbing, especially especially being someone I had actually known. I forgot you went to high school with him. That is terrifying. There is no imagery more scary to me than somebody lighting themselves on fire. Like when it happens in movies and someone sets themselves on fire, I'm like, I cannot see this. That occurred in 2018. Before that, in 2015, we had another horrible situation that occurred actually on the bridge between the towns. A young man, Tony Moreno, was having some kind of depressive episode, and his mother feared he was going to jump off of the bridge. Oh no. He had a 7-month-old baby that he shared with his ex, and on the morning of the incident, he called his mom, ending the call by saying, "Just tell everyone I'm sorry," and throwing his baby off of the bridge. What the fuck? Why are people like this? Oh my god, that is fucking awful. When police arrived, he also jumped off of the bridge, but survived. The baby's body was found 2 days later, 14 miles down the river, and he has since been sentenced to 70 years. What the fuck? I will never understand that. Like, if you're planning on ending your life, it's like, why do you have to also end the I don't know. I know it's a whole thing. I know people, lots of people commit familicide or infanticide before ending their lives, but I just will never understand why. We've had other situations on the bridge over the years. The bridge has just undergone 2 years of renovations that are just now coming to a close, and they have thankfully added suicide barriers along the whole length, which will hopefully greatly decrease these awful things from happening. What's so crazy is I think about, because obviously I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco, I mean, so many people have jumped from the bridge. And I think there's actually a documentary specifically about it. I know I saw a video somewhere and it was like just talking about survivors. Actually, there's people that have survived, and every single person is like, the second you jump, you were like, oh wait, no, I didn't want to do this, which is just so devastating because of all of the people that have jumped and didn't survive and probably felt that. Side note, Connecticut as a whole is most definitely haunted as fuck. It sure is. Ed and Lorraine Warren lived here in Monroe, and they had a museum of all of the haunted items they had collected, ran out of the back of their house, but it has since been permanently closed since both of their passings. I know, and it's devastating because I really would love to see it. Their son, Tony Spera, used to help with the museum, and he does some touring. We saw him a few years ago. He shows some rare photos of Ed and Lorraine's investigations, and he also brought the Annabelle doll from the movies, which was creepy as fuck, and I was waiting the whole time to see it move. I don't know if I could handle being in the same room as Annabelle. That bitch. She's done a lot. There's also the double in Connecticut in Brookfield, which I know you covered this one, and the haunting in Connecticut in Southington, which was also investigated by the Warrens. Then there's also the Bridgeport Poltergeist, the world's most haunted house, which was turned into a book, and Dudleytown, which is an abandoned corner of Cornwall where supposedly even animals don't inhabit. So you walk in and it's completely eerily silent, no bugs or birds, and it's said to have inspired the setting of the Blair Witch Project. Dudleytown. I want to hear more about Dudleytown. All of this and so much more packed into the third smallest state in the whole country. My house was built in 1850. I know there's spirits up in this bitch too. Don't you want to visit us? I really do. I don't know what that says about me, but I do. Sorry if this was a little long. I spent way too long putting it all together, but I hope it tickles your fancy and can make it into the podcast. Sending all of the love from an OG cult babe, Jess. Jess, thank you. We're going to take one more quick break and then we'll get to our last stories. This week's Little Leader is sponsored by Daily Harvest. Cool babes, I love it when the sun sets later and the days get longer. I get more time to be outdoors and just live a little more. But all this summer activity sometimes means I have even less time to cook and focus on eating foods that I know are good for me. That's why I switched up my game with Daily Harvest. It's honestly the best self-care routine I've ever had. Daily Harvest delivers delicious harvest bowls, flatbreads, smoothies, and more, all built on organic fruits and vegetables right to your door. I'll use this as my reminder to tell you about some of my faves, which is the mint and cacao smoothie, the cold brew smoothie that I have in the mornings, obsessed with the artichoke and spinach flatbread, the broccoli and cheese harvest bowls. There's just so many options. Daily Harvest also literally takes minutes to prepare and never uses preservatives, added sugar, or artificial anything, and that goes for everything. My personal summer favorite is Daily Harvest Scoops. They're plant-based ice cream. Scoops is the perfect sweet treat, plus it's gluten and dairy free. Daily Harvest is all about leaving the earth in a better place than they found it, not just for us, but for future generations to come, which we know right now is so important. They focus on increasing biodiversity, investing in organic farming practices, reducing food waste, and even prioritizing recyclable and compostable packaging. Daily Harvest is delicious food all built on whole organic fruits and vegetables that conveniently stay fresh in your freezer, so it's ready when you are. It's really the whole package. Get more time time back to do you and take care of yourself this summer. Go to dailyharvest.com and enter code CULTLEADER to get $25 off your first box. That's code CULTLEADER for $25 off your first box at dailyharvest.com. dailyharvest.com. This one says, daddy issues? Caught my attention. Sure. Don't stop for hitchhikers the night before Father's Day. Hi, Spencer and Hot Dog. Hey, Hot Dog. Hot Dog's so tired. I wanted to write you about something crazy that happened to my daughter and me. So a little background information. I was a very young single mom, and my daughter and I lived with my parents for the majority of her school years. I went to college and saved up and had live-in babysitters, so it was a win-win. We lived in this really small farming town in Ohio, where if you were in middle/high school and didn't play sports, everyone thought there was something wrong with you. Also, football was God. She doesn't play soccer? I always knew something was a little off with her. From a very young age, my daughter became restless at nighttime and had issues falling asleep. I would drive her around and listen to music and just talk to her until she relaxed and fell asleep. My mom used to have to do that with me too. This ended up being our nightly ritual until she was a senior in high school. Okay, well, mine was when I was a baby. But instead of driving around until she fell asleep, we would drive around at night and tell spooky stories about the land around where we lived. The house where we lived was actually in a subdivision that was pretty big and had its own general store, gas station, and post office. Oh, a general store? Do they have rock candy? What do they sell at a general store? I know what they sell at a general store. Don't start. But all around the subdivision was rural farmland, cornfields, and old barns. So we would drive by places and I would make up a spooky story about the old barn there, or make up a ghost story about an old bridge, whatever, and oddly it would relax her enough at night that her anxiety would be under control, and when we got home, she went to bed with no issues. When my daughter was in junior high school, we started seeing this teenage boy walking around the subdivision at night. Later on, through neighborhood gossip, we found out that he lived one street over and was in high school, didn't have many friends, but that his stepfather was a football coach. My daughter said he seemed like a nice guy and tried to talk to him a few times, but he was very quiet and kept to himself. Not rude or anything, just didn't seem trusting of anyone's attention on him. My daughter was a cheerleader, however, she and I viewed ourselves as weirdos and secretly always rooted for the outcast. So when we did our nightly spooky cruising, we would always wave to the teenage guy when we saw him walking around the subdivision alone, and most of the time he would wave back. Cut to a couple of years later, we still did our creepy drive-bys at night, but now we were usually hauling around a couple of her friends with us. It was summer and school was out. My daughter had a sleepover with some friends for cheer, and they had to wake up early the next day for cheer camp, but we went for our spooky ghost drive, and when we got out of the subdivision and onto the main backcountry road, we saw the neighborhood teenage guy walking with a backpack on. There were no streetlights, it was after midnight, and this road had no speed limit, and he was walking with the flow of traffic, which meant if someone came up behind him, they wouldn't be able to see him until it was too late. So I stopped next to him and cracked my window and asked if he was okay, and told him that it was dangerous to be walking on that road at night. The teenage guy looked over at me and it seemed like he had no idea what I was saying, so I asked him if he was okay and he shook his head yes. It looked like he had been crying, so I asked him if he needed help and if he knew how dangerous walking on that road was, and he paused for a second and said, "Ma'am, stopping for hitchhikers is more dangerous than walking on this road. People are evil." Oh, true. I had a car full of teenage girls and got the major creeps at that point, so I made sure the doors were locked. They were, and I told him to be careful and rolled my windows up and took off. The girls spent the whole night the next morning talking about how crazy that was and how we, quote, almost got murdered. I thought the whole thing was so sad, and I made a note to ask the neighborhood gossip if things were good at home for the guy. I mainly kept to myself and only spoke to people in town when they asked about my daughter, so I didn't really know anything about anyone if it didn't directly involve her or her friends. So the next morning, I got the girls up early, off to their first day of cheer camp, and when I came home, I couldn't get back to the subdivision because the main street was blocked off with emergency vehicles, police cars, and news vans. I had been gone for maybe 2 hours or so I couldn't imagine what had happened. And then I noticed all the police cars and one emergency vehicle were parked in the yard of the house where the teenage guy lived. My first thought was, oh my God, he had been hit by a car, and I started shaking. I went around the subdivision and found a way to get in and went home. Of course, all the neighborhood gossips were out in their yards talking, and my mom was with them, so I ran over. Turns out the teenage guy had gotten into some sort of argument with his stepfather, and stabbed him to death. Oh, and did I mention it was Father's Day? Holy shit. Seeing as I had just seen the guy walking around with the backpack the night before, I was a little in shock and blurted out what had happened. Well, that resulted in being questioned by the police and then my daughter and her friends being pulled from cheer camp to get their account what happened the night before. I still think the whole thing is creepy and sad, but my daughter and her friends were local celebrities for a week due to surviving almost being murdered. Eye roll. Oh, teenagers. Below is a link to the news story. The teenage guy, not a teenager anymore, is still in jail, and after my daughter graduated high school and went off to college, I finally became a big girl and moved out of my parents' house at 34 years old. Hey, there's nothing wrong with living with the rents as long as you need to. Love you, Hot Dog and Madison, and I'm thankful for Cult Leader and Obituary. You get me through long work days and saved my sanity during 2020 and continue through 2021. Please do not ever stop podcasting. Also, your Instagram content is top notch. Love content. Thank you. Very complimentary. Okay, but I'll take it all. I will accept it all. You know, we've got a good thing going here. It is scary, but I can totally picture that just being like telling everyone at school, like, yeah, I don't know. He looked at me. I feel like that's like if I was in their friend group, I'd be like, yeah, he was like looking at me. I feel like the most like crazy. Sad, obviously, but crazy. We will end with this one that says Satan next door, because I feel like I actually haven't read this one yet. I feel like it's either going to be about like a really shitty neighbor or something fucked up happening. I don't know. Hi Spencer, I'm sending this email for a little leader and it's pretty crazy. You can also use my name, and sorry for this being so long. It's okay. I forgive you. So when I was about 11, I moved from Pennsylvania to California into a somewhat city-like area in SoCal. I lived with my grandmother and next door was her best friend. They're both old women, super sweet, and there was a little bit of crime in the area, but nothing too crazy. And I didn't know my other neighbors too well at first, but then I became friends with one of the girls a couple doors down because we went to the same school. Fast forward a few years, I want to say I was about 14 when this happened. It was really late at night, and my dad got a phone call from my neighbor. Hot Dog just got up and walked away. I'm sorry. Are you not interested in this one? Not Hot Dog approved. Sorry. Okay, fast forward a few years. I want to say I was about 14 when this happened. It was really late at night, and my dad got a phone call from my neighbor, the old woman. She lived by herself, just to preface, and she was, I want to say, about 70 years old, maybe more. She called my dad in hysterics, saying that somebody was in her house, and my dad was really confused, so he got dressed, and him and my mom went next door to check on her, and when they went to check on her, they found out that our other neighbor, let's call him Eddie, was in her garage and had cut her dog's throat and was holding it and told her that the man made him do it. What the fuck? Oh my god. No, isn't that weird that Hot Dog walked away? It's like she knew. That is weird. I'm saying it, okay? Obviously, my parents are freaking out at this point. They called the police and Eddie was arrested. My neighbor was completely hysterical and really afraid. Poor lady. And while he was in custody, that friend that I mentioned I went to school with also lived next door to him. It was 4 houses. It was my house, the neighbor's house, his house, and then the girl's house that I was friends with. Her and her little brother decided to go into Eddie's house when he was arrested in custody just to snoop around and be nosy because the story was insane. When they went in, they found pentagrams drawn on all the walls. With all of the food, they found candles all over the ground. They found dead chickens, and which we think was my neighbor's chickens. They found a whole bunch of pill bottles and drug paraphernalia, and they were obviously super freaked out and didn't really take the time to look at anything because they were scared of other people being in the house. And they called the police and let the police know. What'd they say? Hey, so we broke into our neighbor's house and we saw some really weird things. You better come take a look. They called the police to let the police know. Then the next day there was about 10 cop cars and a bunch of cleanup people at his house, just kind of cleaning everything up, I would assume, and I never saw him again after that. Some people moved in a few years later, and the neighbor whose dog died now has many security measures in place. It's kind of crazy though how close that happened, and it could have been my house. Makes you think twice about how sturdy your garage doors are. Again, sorry for this being so long. Hope it was interesting for you. Tell Hot Dog I said she's the cutest. Best regards, Haley. Thank you, Haley. I'll tell Hot Dog, but she did not like that story. We needed a warning for that one. I feel so bad for that poor lady. I hope she gets another dog or got another dog. Oh man. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up for the week. Listen, have a great weekend, and I will see you guys Monday with an exciting episode of Cult Leader because we have a special guest with us, and then and that's it. Lock your fucking garages, that's for sure. Goodbye.